Hi friends, welcome to the channel. Hit the like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment with an emoji just for the sake of engagement.
Chapter 9. Dylan asked her to have a seat and served the dinner. Ishil was shocked seeing all the food plated up in front of her, not believing that he cooked everything on his own. She asked him if it was all prepared by him. Dylan replied that indeed he was the one who made everything. Dylan only made 99 dishes since it was their wedding day, and believed that his efforts were lacking. But Ishil couldn't believe how capable he was because he cooked everything himself. She thought that he was totally amazing, and he was the best contract husband. When she tasted the salmon, she felt it was almost dancing wildly in her mouth. It was so delicious that she couldn't even talk and just kept eating. Dylan was glad that she liked his food. Ishil decided to have a proper conversation since they were finally together. She asked Dylan why he wanted to get married in the first place. When Dylan didn't reply, she joked that maybe it was because he liked her, but the joke only made situations even more awkward. Ishil quickly apologized for the joke but added that she knew he didn't like her and it was for the better since nobody liked her anyway. Dylan was trying to find the appropriate answer and only came up with a yes. But when she heard herself, she realized that she was again giving those low self-esteem remarks and blamed her ex for it, who treated her like a slave. She wanted to change the subject and asked Dylan why he married her. Dylan, while having his food, replied that it was simply time for him to get married. Understanding his situation, she decided to eat to finish eating first. But Dylan broke the ice by telling her that she was certainly someone who was worthy of respect. Ishil was shocked upon hearing and realized that he must have said it because of her low self-esteem. She realized that Dylan was different from all the rumors. There were many rumors about him. From him wildly dancing with his sword on top of piles of monster corpses, him rejecting the advances of all sorts of women. Some even stated that he was always surrounded by women. She understood that those strange rumors were not true. She smiled and told him that he was also someone certainly worthy of respect, making Dylan blush. Ishil noticed that his expression suddenly stiffened and wondered what made him displeased. After dinner was over, Ishil felt full and thanked him for treating her to such a lovely meal. He told Ishil to have a look around the house, telling her that there were 4 rooms in total. Ishali didn't get a proper look before, but the more she looked, the more perfect the house was. Unlike her old house, where she was always stuck with old, cold rooms while her family sucked her money away, this place was completely opposite. It was clean. The view from the living room was gorgeous. This was the perfect dream home she had always wanted. She suggested that she use the small room for herself, but Dylan told her to use the large room, and when she asked if he wasn't going to use it, he replied that he preferred the small room's interior design. Recognizing that it was a matter of taste, she decided to go check out the rooms herself. While they were looking around, she noticed a room full of baby gear, including a crib, a rocking horse, and a variety of play items and toys. She asked Dylan about the room, and he said it was a nursery. She thought at once that Dylan had orchestrated it because he believed that the time had come for him to get married and realized that he wanted children. Chapter 10. She asked Dylan nervously if he had decorated the baby room. He stated that the room came decorated this way as an option, so she was curious as to why he chose the baby room for himself. Dylan replied that he liked the small room's decor, which made her heart skip a beat. She was embarrassed by her reaction and left him quickly and went to check out the other rooms. Ishil calmed herself down. She simply didn't expect someone so big to have such cute taste, and she thought it was rather cute. On her way, she blamed herself for thinking and smiling like that. Dylan was nice enough to treat her to a meal, so she decided to get along and promised to help by cleaning the house and doing the laundry tomorrow. When she entered her room, she was surprised to see a well-decorated room with a queen-size bed. She couldn't help and dived into it, rolling from one corner to another. It had been such a long time since she had slept in a soft, fluffy bed, and it felt like she was in heaven. After rolling on the bed for some time, she decided to wash up before sleeping. But since she was very tired, she quickly fell asleep. Later that night her sleep was suddenly broken when she heard the crackling of thunder. Since Ishil was little, the flash of light and the crackle of thunder had always triggered her fear. She knew they were not going to harm her but couldn't help being scared whenever she heard the rumbling of thunder. She couldn't stop shaking. And since it was thundering nonstop, she decided to go get some water to calm herself down because she couldn't sleep properly. As she left the room, she noticed Dylan standing in front of her door, holding a lantern, and she was terrified. When she realized it was Dylan, she asked what he was doing there. Dylan apologized for surprising her and asked Ishil if something was bothering her. She stated that she was just getting water. Dylan had been shaking a rattle that he found in the baby room, which annoyed her. Ishali believed his taste was rather unique. But just when she started leaving to get a glass of water, she got startled by another thunderclap. She jumped and hugged him out of pure anxiety, worrying Dylan. As the thunder passed, she apologized and told him that she didn't mean to grab onto him. But Dylan didn't say anything, simply patting her head with the rattle, asking her to calm down. She found his way of comforting to be odd, but also realized that he might not have ever comforted anyone before. Although it might be strange, she still thanked him for trying his best and told him that feeling someone's warmth was really comforting. Dylan took her hands and held them. He asked her if she needed human warmth to calm down. As they were holding hands, he awkwardly asked her if she needed more. After a while, Ishil went to sit in the living room. Dylan sat beside her and asked if she was not going back to bed. Ishil was scared of the thunder, so she couldn't sleep. She told him not to worry about her and asked him to get some sleep. But instead of going back to his room, he decided to sit down beside her. He told her that he was also not able to sleep, so he decided to stay along with her. She wondered if he was staying because she might get scared of thunder again. But suddenly, Dylan thought of something and left her, asking her to wait. He went back to the kitchen and prepared some hot milk with honey and told her that it would help her sleep. As Ishil was drinking, she realized that Dylan was a thoughtful person. She told him spending the first night like this with him felt special, which made him flustered and emotional thinking about their first night, and he started blushing. Ishil, seeing his expression, wondered how anyone could look that sexy. Chapter 11. Until that day, she had always heard strange rumors about Dylan, like he was arrogant, selfish, and lacked social skills. It was common knowledge that he didn't like bonding with people and was blamed because he was handsome, but now she started to realize that maybe he was someone completely different from the rumors. As she was thinking, she was staring at him, and it made the atmosphere awkward. She quickly extended her hands, telling him that since it was their first night together, they should shake hands for a celebration, asking him to try to get along while they were living together, confusing him. But he seemed sad while they shook hands. Ishil noticed the change in expression for a moment and wondered if she misread it. She decided to tell him about her family situation and informed him that her relationship with her family was not great. It was something that weighed on her mind, but she also asked him not to worry since she wouldn't let her family bother him and told him that if they did, she would bite them like a chihuahua. Dylan felt as if a cupid had hit him, and he fell in love with her again. He found the chihuahua to be impressive. Ishil asked about his own family, but suddenly she heard another thunder crack and remembered a memory from her past, making her heart beat fast. She could vividly see a building collapsing and people trying to run away and somebody screaming for their mom and dad to run and save themselves. It was a memory that always haunted her, but she didn't know why. And whenever she heard thunder, it would come flowing back. Ishil grabbed his shirt, trying to calm herself once again. Seeing her condition, Dylan asked if it would be all right for her if they stayed together. All her life, everybody mocked and made fun of her because of her fear of thunder. No matter how scary she found it, her mother simply ignored it and used to ask her to take a sleeping pill. She still had to go to work even if she was sick because she was earning for the whole family. Ishil realized that even though they were bound by blood, they were worse than strangers, but Dylan was only tied together by chance. It was a relationship that was bound to end in a year's time. Yet he showed more concern than most of her blood relatives ever did, so she was hopeful. She wondered if this is what a real family looks like. In the imperial palace, the emperor was visiting the royal library, down in the basement, in the middle of the night. One of his aides asked him why he was down there. He replied that he needed something for tomorrow, looking through the books because he was sure that it was somewhere around there. Michael, seeing him humming in a cheerful tone, asked him why he was in a good mood. His Majesty replied that he was about to start something fun, which made his aide really nervous. The emperor was known to be an unpredictable figure. He was curious by nature and always exploring something new, like trying to mix a rhinoceros and a horse, hoping to get a unicorn, or growing really large fruits, wanting to hold festivals with those, but he loved the people more than anything else and always put them first, because of which the people in turn also loved and respected him. It turned out he was looking for a special ring. As he touched the ring, it began glowing. Michael was shocked that the emperor had found a particular ring. He chanted some ancient spells, and a light enveloped him. After the spell was performed, he informed Michael that for the next month he would be absent during the daytime on weekdays. Michael cried while asking why he was informing him about his absence just before the day the partnership started. Chapter 12. The next day when Ishil woke up, she found herself sleeping on the sofa. She woke up because she smelled something delicious. She saw a widespread breakfast in front of her and wondered where it came from, but soon praised the cooking skills of Dylan. She looked around for him but found him shirtless, drying his hair after a shower. He wished her a good morning, but seeing his sexy nude body, Ishil was about to collapse. She quickly headed off to work before anything happened. Our poor boy was gloomy. He thought that his body was so ugly and unpleasant to look at. He decided to work harder on self-care. When she reached her work, she had a lot of people gossiping about the news in today's newspaper. It was her first day back at work since becoming Dylan's wife, and since they worked at the same place, they ended up commuting in the same direction, but it was as if he knew that it would be awkward for her if they walked together, so he walked at a distance from her. The more she saw him, the more considerate he seemed, but she decided to snap out of her thinking because she had promised herself not to trust people and decided not to open her heart because when the contract ended in a year, she knew that the empty space left by Dylan would feel even colder. She decided to guard her heart because only money would remain by her side. As she was about to enter the office, she noticed her colleagues scolding a new guy for messing up on his first day. Although the man apologized, they were still berating him because the task was really easy. A new recruit made a mistake and had shredded an important document. Ishil suddenly noticed the ring the recruit was wearing. As her colleague was venting her frustrations on the new recruit, Ishil came to his defense, asking her to calm down as people could easily make mistakes sometimes, telling her she was being too harsh. They were adamant because they didn't want their tax money becoming the guy's salary since he was making a lot of mistakes. They told her that he was not a magician and a replaceable staff could be hired quickly, wanting to fire him immediately. But since Ishil was fighting for that guy, her colleague asked her to take him under her care. After a bit of hesitation, Ishil agreed that she would do it. They asked her why she was suddenly acting like this since she had always lived without making her presence known, but Ishil, frustrated by their actions, told them that no one was good at their jobs from the beginning and left with the new recruit. She asked His Majesty in disguise if he was okay and if he was hurt somewhere. Ishil believed she knew who he was. The ring she had noticed was a peculiar fake gem with mysterious amethyst and sapphire colors mixed in equal proportions. Before she came back, she had seen that ring, and it was a disguise ring. Before her rebirth, the ring became a big hit and was popularized. But right now, since she was in the past, it was before the commercialization had happened. So it was expensive. And since an ordinary part-timer was wearing that ring, she thought that this person must be an evaluator sent by the monitoring team and decided to make a good impression to get plenty of incentives. She introduced herself, asking him to remember her properly, and showed him around, telling him where the break room was and where they were going to work. The work environment here was good, so there were a lot of snacks for the employees that he could enjoy. She decided to start their work from the storage room. She asked what his name was, and the emperor introduced himself as Ford. Ishil didn't want to let this opportunity slip away and decided to do her best. She was already glad that this little guy would be her money source. In the training ground, Sir Dylan and some other knights were having a match, and as expected, Sir Dylan was winning every match. He was the most skilled in the knighthood. The senior whom he was fighting with was hurt since he had lost to a junior. Dylan, being the nice guy, even brought back his opponent's sword and apologized. But his senior blamed him for being slow and asked him to hurry up. Dylan apologized for the delay but overheard someone talking about Ishil. A few girls were talking about Ishil taking a rookie part-timer under her wing, and the Knights Management Bureau was in an uproar. They weren't expecting her to be that sort of person. Rumors were even circulating that Ishil and the new rookie might even be dating. Dylan was horrified hearing the gossip. Chapter 13. Suddenly the atmosphere surrounding Dylan became tense, and even other knights could feel it. They could feel the intent of killing coming from him. The senior who lost was still hurt. Looking at his expression, became even more frustrated, and grabbed his shirt, asking him if he had a problem. The other knights tried to stop him, sensing the situation, but he was oblivious. He suggested having another spar if Dylan was unhappy. Dylan was ready in an instant. He raised his sword, telling them that everyone here had a lot to say, and he wanted to settle it with a spar, inviting all 5 of them to come at him at once. In the storage room, Ishil and the Emperor were busy with their work. Ishil told him that he did very well for the first day. Ford was actually the Emperor of this country and was currently in disguise. And the reason he came to the Knight Order in disguise was to find out what kind of person Ishil was. He took a job as a part-timer to observe her, but having never done manual labor before, he kept making mistakes and was even reprimanded for those. He felt like he truly experienced the life of a peasant in it and decided to revise the labor laws soon. He apologized to Ishil for causing such trouble. Ishil told him that people made mistakes sometimes. She told him that she would cover the warehouse duties for a while and that they should help each other with things they are good at. The Emperor was also hit by a Cupid's arrow. He started falling for Ishil, but when she asked why he was so surprised, he quickly recovered, promising to never fall for such kindness, as he was determined to find out her true identity. While they were working, they heard about a duel happening outside. Ishil excitedly asked Ford if he wanted to go and watch the exciting duel, and Ford agreed. Sadly, by the time they reached to see what was happening, the duel was already over. As 5 people lay completely defeated. After the fight was over, Dylan decided to tend to his sword, but soon he heard Ishil's laughter. He looked around and saw the tiny human beside his love. The saddest thing was they were enjoying each other's company. They were laughing about an administrative joke. Seeing them enjoying each other's company made Dylan's heart ache. He wondered what that feeling was, as he had never felt it before and didn't know why he wanted to tear that little guy apart. Once they reached Dylan, the Emperor was nervous seeing his brother and quickly hid his face. Dylan asked Ishil why she was there. She replied that a part-timer started working. So she came to help organize the warehouse and heard there was a fight. She introduced Dylan to Ford, but he greeted him without even looking at him, making Dylan suspicious. He was sure that the little guy was avoiding his gaze. Dylan asked Ishil if she was heading to the warehouse and wanted to go with her. But before they could discuss further, Ford grabbed Ishil's arm and started dragging her away, telling her that they were very busy. Dylan really wanted to kill that guy. But before they completely vanished from sight, Ishil raised her hand, waving at him, and told him that they would see each other later at home, making his heart flutter with happiness. After the day's work, the Emperor returned back to his palace. He was tired and felt that it was actually harder than his actual job. Michael asked if he had already completed his paperwork. He was excited to see that it was all done. He asked the Emperor if he was going to continue playing a part-timer. He replied that he was planning to since it was fun. He asked Michael if he had investigated Ishil and her family background. While looking through the papers, he pondered why his brother held Ishil in such high regard and whether the expression he was making was typical of someone who merely respected someone else. Something piqued his interest as he prepared to place an order. He noticed they were both living in the Imperial Special Supply Newlywed town. Michael responded that it was true but guessed that it was because Dylan was hiding his identity. When the Emperor heard it, he burst out laughing with a cryptic smile, and Michael was frightened because he knew that when His Majesty laughed like that, it meant he was plotting something. His Majesty smiled and devised a plan, informing Michael that something exciting was about to happen very soon. Ishil received a letter back at home and discovered that it was addressed to all of the Newlywed town's residents. The letter stated that the Imperial Palace would be hosting a picnic for the newlyweds and that attendance was mandatory. Chapter 14. The Newlywed Couple Housing Special Supply Policy was a system that helped newlywed couples secure housing in the capital. Currently, the housing prices in the capital were skyrocketing irrationally due to foreign speculation, making it difficult for ordinary citizens to buy a home. However, fake couples who tried to use the system to purchase expensive homes in the capital were not uncommon. The picnics concept was developed by the Imperial Housing Supply Management Bureau, which oversees this, but the staff thought the slogan that Emmanuel, the director of the Housing Supply Management Bureau, came up with was tacky. He was proud of the catchphrase, and he even sacrificed his precious lunchtime to make it. The director was full of enthusiasm, encouraging everybody to work passionately. The employees were frustrated and irritated because they had to come to work on weekends. The director didn't know why they were so weak and told them that back in his day they would have surely been fired for working like that. Although they were receiving overtime to work on weekends, still the employees didn't feel like it. One of the employees asked the director why they were holding picnics on the weekends, but the director shut him off, simply telling him that there indeed was a reason and asking him to do his job. Emmanuel was a man full of ambition. As the current director of the Housing Supply Management Bureau, he had postponed marriage to build his position, but that alone was not enough. From the moment he took charge of this public housing task, he wanted to gain more standing and earn a high position, which was his dream. He was determined that even though his beginning was humble, his ending would be grand. But the employees who sacrificed for it were disgusted among themselves. They were discussing among themselves how their job was to identify whether the newlywed couples coming to the event were fake or real, but also wondered if they could tell that through a picnic. Soon, all the newlywed couples started arriving. They looked happy and in love, but some stood out. The director noticed Ishil and thought she looked much like the administrator. Sorban replied that she indeed was Ms. Ishil, who worked at the administration office. As they looked at the couple, they were sure that for a couple, the pair seemed distant from each other and were hoping that a civil servant wouldn't commit marriage fraud. But when Ishil looked at Sorban, she realized that she had seen him somewhere before. While the other couples were busy showing public affection, our couple didn't engage and was standing out. Ishil told Sir Dylan to do their best. Last night they strengthened their resolve. They discussed how calling each other formally didn't feel right and decided to call each other by their names starting the next day. Ishil suggested that they hold hands naturally so that it did not appear suspicious, and he told him to do it even if it made him uncomfortable, urging him to be brave, but Sir Dylan readily agreed. He was determined not to disclose their contract marriage. The flower viewing event started, and the couples were instructed to take out their prepared lunch boxes on the mat they had received and begin enjoying them. The employees weren't sure if they'd be able to distinguish fake couples but decided to go along. And as people began to enjoy their food and share it with their partners, the employees began to study and gather information. The director appeared to be very interested in other people's relationships, despite the fact that he was neither married nor dating. When they arrived near them, they were suspicious because Ishil and Lord Dylan had not opened their lunchbox. The housing employees were discussing how the couple was obviously fake and did not appear to be compatible. However, as soon as he overheard them, he opened his prepared lunchbox. It was a lunchbox designed to resemble his wife with the dedication and belief that only a true couple would have. Ishil was ecstatic that everyone had fallen for their trick. And when she looked at the guy for the second time, she remembered that he was the one her sister had been stringing along. She realized he might be here to keep an eye on her. At her mother's house, she was in a rage, calling Ishil an ungrateful wench. It turned out she had finally received the damage compensation notice and was now legally required to compensate Ishil for all of the damages. Chapter 15. Her mother showed the letter to her sister, asking why the loan in Ishil's name was denied because she was perplexed because they were family and could easily use her name as a proxy. Her sister stated that she went to the city office and learned that Ishil was no longer a member of their family. After investigating, the worker informed her that Ishil had registered her name with a different family. Her mother was perplexed, asking if Pedro had married Ishil. Knowing that Pedro would have informed them if such a thing occurred, Pedro entered their house at that exact moment, calling for Ishil. Her mother addressed Pedro as her son-in-law and inquired as to why he was only showing up now. Her sister wanted to know if they would get a late wedding invitation, but Pedro was crying his eyes out, telling them that Iscael had sent them all a legal warning demanding compensation. Her sister asked what he was talking about, and he said Ishil wanted everything she had ever given them back as compensation. After hearing Pedro, her mother dashed to get the letter. She came across something unbelievable. They had all received formal claims for damages, but her sister was aware that such claims could not be sent without the person's consent. Her mother finally realized how Ishal had duped her by signing the document in an ancient language. She couldn't believe Ishali was betraying them after they'd raised, cared for, and even protected her. They decided to find out who Ishal was married to. Terrified because they had also sold the things she had given them and didn't know how to repay the money, her sister calmly informed them that she had a friend in the palace who would assist her in gathering information about her husband because she was certain that no man in his right mind would fall for her and that no one would come to save Ishal unless it was them. Back at the competition, her sister's friend was perplexed because she had informed him that Ishal had been duped into a phony marriage. But the way they were acting didn't feel like it was a scam, but he was still persistent trying to dig up every piece of information he could for her sister. He continued to argue that just because they both brought a lunchbox with Ishali's face does not prove that they were married, because anyone could make that kind of lunchbox if they were not in love. He was adamant that their marriage was not genuine. She became enraged when she heard him talk rudely about the marriage. Ishal yelled, asking if the workers were doubting their relationship, and then decided to demonstrate to everyone present what true newlywed affection looked like. They exchanged sweet looks, and Ishal addressed Dylan as darling, causing him to blush brightly. He responded in a similar manner, referring to her as baby. Ishal was taken aback because she hadn't expected Dylan to act in this way. The employees, taken aback by their lovely public display of affection, were convinced that no one would use such a nickname unless they were truly married. It was because the employees would be unable to do so due to the extreme cheesiness. They concluded Dylan and Ishal were the real deal. The truth about the baby's nickname dates back to the previous day. Dylan was busy maintaining his sword when he asked his friends for dating advice and to show him how people do it nowadays. His friends were shocked because they had no idea he had a girlfriend because he had never shown any interest in women before, and one of them even believed he was legally married to his sword. Dylan inquired if there was a problem after witnessing them discussing the matter, but they quickly responded that they were simply curious. One of them mentioned that he knew girls liked surprise kisses, and another of his colleagues said that girls liked obsessive guys and public confessions. But the real clincher came when someone called their partner baby and told him that girls would love it. Dylan wrote everything down, and the guys were busy praising themselves, but their lifelong singles had no idea if they were actually helping him. Dylan's efforts were finally rewarded when they were named the winners of the first Newlywed picnic, Perfect Couple. Everyone was cheering for them, calling her husband Dreamy. That's how that day they became the most loved newlywed couple in Newlywed Town. The general was furious with Sorbin because he was overstepping and diminishing his value, but Sorbin was glad that it finally worked out. Ishal had already informed Dylan about the spy, telling him that the official that was bad-mouthing them earlier was her sister's friend and could be spying on them on her behalf. But Dylan only knew one thing. If the guy was a member of Ishal's family, with whom she disagreed, he was his enemy. Looking at the winning cup, she assumed it was made of pure gold and that they could sell it for a good price in order to get rid of it. The next day, Dylan went to the emperor and complained about Sorbin, telling him that he disliked his work attitude and wanted him transferred to the provinces. The emperor was certain that he was holding a personal grudge against him for some reason. Dylan responded that he was not a good fit for the imperial palace, and the emperor reluctantly agreed to his brother's request. He told him that he had read his report on the terrorists' bomb planted last night, and Dylan said they had done a perfect job disposing of the bomb. The Red Star terrorist organization was viewed as a threat by the palace because it had been working to topple the empire since the Million Theater bombing 20 years prior. Dylan told the emperor that he had a suspect in mind for the bombing, and when the emperor asked who it was, he told him his name was Ford. He informed the emperor that he worked in the Imperial Knights Administrative Division and was useless and creepy because he was constantly creeping on noblewomen, stabbing the emperor's pride. The emperor regretted his decision after hearing his brother talk about him in such a way, but when asked if he was fine, he simply replied that he was tired. Chapter 16. The next day Soldika and Pedro met Sorbin in an alley to discuss their findings. Sorbin was sure that Ishal and Dylan did not look like a contract couple because they seemed too comfortable with each other. Soldika was wondering how Ishal found a guy like Dylan. Sorbin informed them that he was a famous knight and he was more impressive than Pedro. Although Pedro didn't like the comparison, no one paid any attention. He told them Dylan was ridiculously handsome and tall and worked as a palace knight. He asked them if they really had not heard about Dylan because he was the one who won the tournament for commoners. Soldika was extremely jealous, seeing that her sister found someone so amazing. She thanked Sorbin and tried to seduce him, telling him that there was a job that she needed help with. She told him that there was somewhere she would like to go with him, and it was something only he could help her with. In the Imperial Castle, Rebecca was busy overseeing the decorations for an event. She didn't notice the Emperor as she was busy directing all the staff and monitoring their tasks. The Emperor asked Rebecca about the setup. She replied that everything was on schedule. A day before, when Dylan came to meet him, he had discussed their recent adventure on the picnic and had shared in great detail what they did throughout. When the Emperor saw Dylan's expression, he once again wondered if he really admired Ishil. Dylan told him that he really did admire her, but if someone better came along, he would also be willing to let her go, as it was nothing more than admiration. The Emperor had never seen a look like that in his brother's eyes, so he was questioning if it was just admiration. Dylan showed him the posters he had made for the event, which was the Imperial Palace Ball for government officials. Ishil saw the poster and realized that the ball was again happening this year, and she wondered if she would be able to go with Sir Dylan this time. Even though her colleagues had heard from Sorbin that they were a couple, they still couldn't believe it and didn't want to trust a word that came out of her mouth. If the rumors were true, they believed Dylan's standards must be lower and questioned if he was actually bringing her along to the ball. They couldn't comprehend that someone like Sir Dylan would like Ishil. Ishil, upon hearing, came to confront them. Marilyn saw her approaching. The guy openly stated that he thought Ishil was dating Ford, and Marilyn agreed. Since they both were nerds, they belonged together. Ishil replied that people can't help how they look and told her that if she were to stand beside Dylan, she would also look like a potato. When her friends started laughing at her remarks, she also called him a sweet potato and asked them to return to their work, leaving them frustrated. Later, while having tea, she was talking of getting a haircut and also losing her glasses. Since her eyesight was not bad, she could easily lose the glasses without any issues. Her family had always told her not to care about appearances because it would get in the way of her work and made her cover her face with her hair and glasses, but now she wanted to change because it might cause trouble for Dylan. The Emperor, who was disguised as Ford, happened to overhear her and ask her if she was planning to do a head-to-toe makeover. Eagerly, he told her that he just happened to know of such a place to visit and was happy to accompany her on the morning of the ball. Ishil was confused and thought that Ford was asking her to be his partner for the ball, but Ford informed her that she was mistaken. He was not a despicable man with no morals and would never hunt on someone who was already taken. He passed her a slip, and it was for a very high-end salon that every noble lady dreamed of visiting. She had also heard that it was impossible to get a ticket even with money, so she wondered how Ford, who was just a part-timer, got his hands on it and started questioning his identity. On the morning of the ball, she was warmly welcomed to the salon. The salon owner proudly stated that her hands would bring out Ishil's true beauty and asked the helpers to fetch some tea for the guests. Ishil looked sad as she wanted Dylan to join her too. A few days ago, when she asked him to attend the ball with her, he agreed but told her that since he had some work to take care of that day, he would directly meet her at the ball. Ishil was sad because she had expected something from Dylan and had her hopes high like an idiot. After sitting her for the makeover, the hairdresser took a look at Ishil and, with a judging look, asked her if she was seriously planning to wear the glasses to the ball. When Ishil replied that she was going to throw them out, she took her glasses without wasting a second and smashed them to the ground. Later, when she looked at Ishil, she was surprised to find a beautiful lady hiding behind those hideous glasses.
That's all for today. See you in the next episode, friends. Until then, keep reading manga.